Hello, comic book fans. I am Pete, and I'm with my good friend Brian, and we are Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about the comic book media that's been adapted into TV shows or movies, a lot of times streaming shows. We've covered a lot of Disney Plus shows, and every so often we cover a show that's been put out on Netflix. Just like one of your very favorite shows, right, Brian? Jupiter's Legacy?
Oh, my absolute favorite.
The sparrows are flying again tonight, Brian. Do you remember that song when we had our own black metal band?
Oh my God.
Like, let's see. I guess that's going back to when we were like in our early 20s. We're almost 40, or Brian's 40.
That's still, what, 17, 18 years ago?
Yeah. Brian and I were in a black metal band called Blasphemous Machine, and our friend Jay was a big Stephen King fan, and he was inspired by The Dark Half, and so he titled one of the songs "The Sparrows Are Flying Again," and that's from The Dark Half. So whenever they talk about sparrows in the show, I think about our black metal band. If you guys are wondering, Brian was the guitarist, and I was the bassist, and Jay was the singer.
Yes, and then we can't forget my cousin Owen was the drummer, and our friend Gary was the other guitar player, and we played a total of one show in my backyard.
There's like 80 people there, though. That was pretty awesome.
It was, and I swear to God, I think more people came to it because it was my house rather than that club. So
yes, yeah. I think we've mentioned on our show before that we have a videotape of that, but that my mom taped some British drama over it one night.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. Basically, I was so excited.
I at least have the music somewhere.
Yes, we definitely have the music. Yeah. No, we had a videotape recording of the show, and it was like an awesome show. And then my mom, when she moved here, I saw that she had the tape. I popped in my VCR ready to reminisce and feel that nostalgia. And then Downton Abbey came on. So I was like, what the fuck?
That feels like something out of a TV show we'd watch.
Yes. And speaking of black metal music and just badass music, we are talking about the Umbrella Academy, which was made by My Chemical Romance frontman Gerard Way and amazing artist Gabriel Ba. And they published that comic from Dark Horse in 2008. And this show came out on Netflix in 2019. Now, Brian, you are a big fan of the comic, right?
I love the comic. Yeah, it's just got this weird, kind of strange, 50s sci-fi comic vibe to it. Mm-hmm. And I've always been a big fan of it.
Yeah, we have covered season 3 of Doom Patrol. It's kind of a similar situation. We covered season 3 of Doom Patrol. We didn't cover the first 2 seasons. And I had to kind of catch up to watch that. And now we're doing the exact same thing for Umbrella Academy. I basically fast forwarded through the first 2 seasons to get up to here.
So you're going to remember a lot more than I do because I watched season 1 and 2 when they came out. So my memory's a bit more fuzzy.
Okay, cool. Well, have you just started watching season 3 and this is your first time now, or did you go back and watch it again?
First time. I've only watched the first 3 episodes so far. Actually, I did start the very 4th for
me too
5 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I am very curious, right? What is your impression of this show just in general?
The show is very different from the comics. They take a couple things here and there, and they add a lot of different things or a lot of variations to it. I just previously mentioned I feel like the comic is very strange in a weird 1950s sci-fi kind of pulpy way, and the show is more strange in a goofy way.
Yes.
But also kind of incorporates some more serious subject matter, more so in season 2, I think. And potentially this season as well. And I do like both. I didn't like season 1 that much, but season 2, it was so different. I kind of just let the attachment go sort of. And I enjoyed season 2 a lot more than 1.
Yes. So you and I have never discussed the show prior to this. And so you don't know how I feel about it. And I have to say, I kind of fucking love this show, a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Season 1, it's like you said, there's some things that are a little off. It does kind of feel like it drags a little bit, and it deviates from the comic a lot.
Yeah.
It is its own thing in every single season. I just feel like the choices they made in season 1, it's just they do kind of things just to kind of spin the wheels and drag it out.
So I don't know. This is a comic series that has 3 volumes and there's 6 issues each. But for some reason, this show is it 10 episodes a season or 8 or 9? So
no, 10.
There's a lot that just like drags out in that first season.
Yeah,
and they took a lot. They took a decent amount of story points from volume 2 of the comic and added that to season 1 as well. And still, it feels really dragged out.
That's right. Yeah. So another thing just to explain to you guys too is that I've taken out all the trades from the library. I've read like the first volume. I've read this. I'm in the middle of the second volume right now. And then there's the third volume too. I need to get around to. But
wait, have you never read the third volume?
No, I've read all of it when it's come out. It's just I'm just refreshing it. And
I've reread the first volume of the comic for this, but I haven't gotten much further yet.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is you said they took stuff from the second volume and put it into the first season of the show. And that's the biggest change. That's kind of the part I dislike the most about the first season is the stuff with Hazel and Cha-Cha.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I forget which one is which.
So Hazel is the guy, and Cha-Cha is Mary J. Blige.
I loved Hazel. I loved Hazel and Agnes. I don't know why. That was like one of my favorite parts of the first season. But I was not a fan of Mary J. Blige's Cha-Cha. She was a little like bland acting-wise, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, she's an amazing singer. She's not really known for acting, I suppose. But that was a highlight of season 1 for me, actually. that weird storyline. So.
Yeah. Well, like with Hazel and Cha-Cha, it's interesting because like I was reading through volume 1 of the book and I'm like, oh shit, they're not in it at all. And then they're in volume 2, and essentially they're wearing those masks that they wear in the first season. And you never see their faces. And also Hazel and Cha-Cha it looks like it's 2 men in the comic.
Yes. Oh yeah, they are. Other than those masks, they are very different in the comics, and I can see why someone wouldn't like them because of that. Yeah,
in the comics, they're just so like crazy and lethal, and they do some horrible things to these people that work in a diner. And then in the show, we see like this kind of romance, like you mentioned, with Hazel and the woman that works in the donut shop. And then they kind of turn on each other. There's all this stuff with the commission. One thing that I think is a big departure from the comic is just the overall look, right? Obviously, they're working on a budget and they have to kind of make it match with our world more than this like comic book world that Gerard Way and Gabriel Boff put together. And Gerard Way, when you look at his My Chemical Romance like videos, and when you look at his other comics like the Fabulous Killjoys, there's obviously like an aesthetic there. It's like it's kind of like a little bit of like a retro, maybe even like Japanese look to it. Like their masks that Cha-Cha and Hazel wore, these sort of like kind of look like they're like from like a Japanese toy store or something like that, right? And it's also like you said, like a 50s aesthetic where a lot of people are wearing like suits and fedora hats and things like that. And they capture a little bit of that in the show, but the show is much more normal looking than the comic.
Yeah, the comic is very exaggerated, almost cartoony, and it'd be kind of hard to replicate that in real life. I almost kind of wondered if this would have worked better as like an animated series.
Oh, 1,000%. Yes. Now, with that being said, I still fucking love this show. Like, I love it. And the main reason why I love this show is because of the characters. Like, I feel like they're my friends. I just want to, like, when we're done talking here, I just want to go watch them some more and hang out with them. Like, I love it because of the characters. And so I wanted our next step. Well, actually, one thing before we get to this next step, which was to talk about the individual characters, I just thought it was very interesting to talk about who made this show. Do you know anything about the people behind the scenes?
Yes, but please go ahead.
Yeah. So the reason why I think I love this show so much is because one of the showrunners is Steve Blackman, who was a writer and producer on Fargo. Fargo is like one of my favorite TV shows ever. And then also he did Altered Carbon. I haven't really watched that. And then he did Legion. I've only seen a little bit of Legion, but you love Legion, right?
I've only seen the first season, but yes, Legion was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, when you have someone like that behind the scenes where they want to, like, they're actively trying to make something different, they want to, not just do generic stuff. They want to do different types of shots and, do almost like music video style filmmaking. Like, I love that. And I think that's where this show really excels with that, like, kind of unexpected stuff and then the characters. And then besides that, the other person that works on the show is Jeremy Slater. And he did like the original treatment for that Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie. He also wrote the Netflix Death Note movie, which I don't think that went over well.
Did not.
He also worked on the Exorcist TV show. And then you and I discussed another one of his shows that he was the producer on, and that was the Moon Knight show.
Moon Knight, yep.
So his track record's not as tight. But as you can see, it's like imaginative stuff, and it's all over the place,
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that being said, I want to know what you think about the characters of the Umbrella Academy.
This is a hard one to answer honestly. From the comics originally, the characters that I gravitated towards the most were Luther, Allison, and Five. In the show, there, especially, it changes for me by season. I know that the internet is obsessed with Klaus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know who my favorite character is in the show. Actually, I can't really decide.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the things that you said right off the bat when we started talking about this show was that with Diego and Luther, they have that kind of like Leonardo and Raphael dynamic in the comics. They kind of have it in season 1 of the show. But one big difference with Luther in the show is that they've made him like a goofball.
Yeah. So, I mean, rereading Apocalypse Sweep, in the last couple of days, it kind of fits a little bit. I mean, even the very beginning of Dallas too. I think why I like Luther in the comics because he was essentially the Cyclops, the strategic kind of leader type, and but in the comic in the first volume at the end, the final battle against the orchestra, Allison gets hurt and he leaves. He just leaves the battle, and then that kind of shows that he's not as responsible as he should be. And then, at the beginning of the second arc, he kind of put on a lot of weight and he's kind of just sitting there watching TV. So I can kind of see where they got the inspiration to make him a little more of a goofball here. But they definitely took that aspect and ran with it.
Yeah. Well, I should say that I feel like he is perfectly cast. For the character that he's playing, he's excellent. Every single member of the Hargreaves family, the Umbrella Academy, everyone's perfectly cast.
Yes,
I at first I thought it was like a little much him being a goofball, and because it's like he's supposed to be the leader, he's number 1, but he's kind of silly. But I really love that he loves Allison, and it's that sort of unrequited love where he's trying to get with her. It's interesting when we get to season 3 how things kind of change a little bit. And I want to talk about that when we go into the episodes. I do like Allison. Her power in the comics and this is maybe the most intriguing power, to be able to say, I heard a rumor, and you can essentially control people. When I went on a little road trip with my family recently, I asked them, whose powers would you want out of the Umbrella Academy? And everyone was like, oh, I want the rumor's powers. Like, that's the obvious one.
Yeah.
And then, she's great. I think, though, that you mentioned that Klaus was the sort of the internet's favorite, and I can totally see why. I've never seen the actor that plays him before. Have you seen him in anything else?
Yes, I've not seen it, but I believe he's from the British show Misfits or something like that.
Oh, he's in that? Yeah, I know what that is. I never watched it, though.
Yeah, I want to say it's Misfits, but I could be wrong. He's from some other popular British show. That's all I remember.
Okay. Well, I freaking love him too. I understand why the internet loves him, because he's just like so over the top, and just his affect, and he's a good looking dude too. Everybody in the cast is good looking, and he's just so like silly and fun. He's awesome. He's close to my favorite. I also like Diego too. Like I didn't like Diego in the first season as much, but as it's gone on, I've liked him a lot.
Yeah, no, I actually think that I don't think I even liked Luther and Allison that much in the first season. I think that was disappointing to me. But season 2, everybody was just so much better.
Yes.
Overall.
Yeah. So like then we have number 5. We got to talk about him too, because like this actor, and I have all their names written down, but just the actor that plays number 5, he just does this fantastic job of like conjuring this sort of 1950s curmudgeon-y old man, but he's probably like a teenager.
Yeah.
And I know that like, the show started filming in 2019. Obviously he's gotten older and he does look slightly older, but they've just by the way that he holds himself and his haircut, he still looks very young.
How they dress him really helps to kind of make him look a little younger too. But they moved a little bit away from that in season 3, it seems. But
yeah, but he's just so great too. I mean, every single member of the family is great. I would say that my favorites would have to be like Diego and Klaus and number 5. Which just look at the poster, I get so excited. And then before I forget about it, I don't know if the show ever reaches this height that it reaches in season 2, where they play Kiss's "I Was Made for Loving You." Do you remember that part?
I don't.
Like it was just like this perfect blend of like what was going on the screen and what was going on in the show. I really have not listened to that song "I Was Made for Loving You" by Kiss that much. But it just was like so fucking awesome. It was this battle that was in this hotel, and number 5 was in it. Diego was in it, and Diego's girlfriend Lila was in it. So fucking good.
That sounds a little more familiar now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's what I wanted to talk about too. Is we're such huge fans of the Transformers the movie, and I always talk about how that has like this perfect blending of what you're seeing on screen and then the music, right? And this show, I often feel like they're not like, oh, let's set up an action scene. It's more like, oh, let's set up a music video. Because there's like so many sort of like musical montages. And I feel like the battles and stuff are just like musical montages with fighting.
Yeah. And they've always kind of incorporated like a major song and dance number in every season. What was the song they used in the first season? I forgot. Where they're all kind of like dancing in the rooms by themselves.
Yes. I think we're alone now.
Oh, I think we're alone? Okay.
Yeah.
Then what did they use in season 2 then?
What
in season 2?
Well, in season 3, I can tell you that they play Footloose when they have their dance off. Yeah. I mean, they use a ton of shit. And the cool thing is it's not like Stranger Things where it's like, oh, it's all 80s stuff. It's all over the fucking map. They play stuff from like the 60s and the 70s, the 80s, modern day stuff.
It doesn't matter if they're in the 60s, they will play a song that's from the 80s or the 90s or whatever.
Yeah. And they're one of the shows, there's at least 3 shows now that have played this Radiohead song, which is like exit music for a film. I think that's the name of it. I should have wrote it down. But it's this song they used in like Westworld. They played it in an episode of Black Mirror. And it's this big epic song. They played it in season 1 when Vanya like first used her power for the first time. And like anytime a show uses that song, I'm like, that's a great fucking choice. So, I mean, obviously you can tell I'm a fan. Maybe we should move on to season 3 and start going into the details about each episode.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So, basically by the end of season 2, after the team has been sort of scattered into different years, and they're in Dallas, Texas, they all come together and they hop back to the present day, but it turns out they're in a new timeline. And the Umbrella Academy doesn't exist in this timeline. Instead, we have the Sparrow Academy. And we have a whole new team. And they were not in the comics, right?
They are. So
okay.
They are literally in the last page of volume 3 of the comic.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They show up. They save the day, and then at the very end, they show up.
Mm-hmm.
And you just see a picture of them, and they're fairly accurate to those character designs as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I would love to see what they do with them in the comics. What do you think about the team on the show?
Well, I really like the altered timeline premise here. It's almost like it's very Back to the Future esque.
Yes.
You know, in the second season, they meet their father, Reginald Hargreaves, when they were younger, and then he finds out their whole origin story, and then by just meeting them, he's like, "I'm gonna get different ones than I don't like them." And I just
Right.
love that for some reason, and that's what changed time here. So
Yes.
you know, the difference being here is that because he didn't see Ben at all, there's no only Klaus can see him. That
Right.
Ben is still selected, and then the other six are different than the Umbrella Academy was.
Right.
Um, the characters seem are interesting enough in the first three episodes. Some of them we see more of than others.
Right.
I'll say,
Yes.
and yeah, I'm not sure I can pick a favorite yet or anything like that. I kind of have liked the storyline with Sloane and Luther a little.
Yes. Yes.
And I like that this Ben is a little kind of angrier and doesn't quite understand why everyone's calling him knows who he is or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that actor had such a great scene in season 2 where it was like essentially he was moving on to heaven or the afterlife, and he was leaving after being with Klaus since he had died. That was such a great scene, and then it was great to see him come back. That's Justin H. Min. He was great, but he's a total dick. And when he's on the Sparrows team,
Yes.
he was number 2 on the Sparrows team, and then eventually he makes his way up to number 1. We're going to talk about that as we go episode by episode. But the Sparrows are kind of like the alpha team compared to the Umbrella Academy, which are like they all have these issues and that they don't work well together for the most part.
Although that's how they're viewed on the surface.
Right.
They're seen as kind of like protectors and saviors, but there's definitely something going on underneath that we haven't quite figured out yet.
Yeah, they're definitely dysfunctional, and they are not as caring or compassionate as the Umbrella Academy is. And so it's just this interesting mishmash. The Umbrella Academy, the way the show works, it works as like an X-Men show. They could easily be mutants.
Yeah, totally. They're a bunch of gifted younger people that they live in a mansion in the city.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so the Sparrows are this great other team with powers for them to go up against. And in that very first episode, which is entitled Meet the Family, we have both teams going up against each other. And it's just so great to see people with superpowers fighting each other, which you don't really see. We only have a few teams in these live action modern movies, right? We only have the Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Justice League, and pretty much always they're fighting just big armies of things, right? And so it's
all the times that we've had a hero and villain face off with the same power set in different ideals, we haven't really seen that team wise.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe the only thing that we've really seen is in Civil War, right? When the two different sides are coming together, right? But all the Sparrow's powers are kind of funny too. You have the one guy, Alfonso, who his face just looks like melted butter or something, and he doesn't he seem like what's this, Mark Ruffalo to you, that actor?
I can kind of see that, yeah.
He's funny. He's this sort of smart ass on the team, and then you have this guy Marcus, who's this alpha guy. He kind of almost seems like he has the same powers as Luther, but I think he maybe is more acrobatic than Luther.
Yes. He didn't look like he'd been injected with Martian ape DNA or however they explained it in the show.
Yeah, right. I don't think they ever explained it in the show. They just injected him, and then he just he did that. And then you have Sloane, who you mentioned, which she has kind of telekinesis. Then there is, should I have all their names written down? But there is
Faye with the crows that you can see out of their eyes.
Well, she can generate them too.
Yes.
Yeah. She's cool. Aesthetically, she's real cool to look at. Then you have the one that's just like spitting venom all the time.
Yeah, I think it's Jamie.
Okay, yeah, Jamie, right.
And then
there's a cube.
Christopher the Cube.
Yeah, right. Which I made a little joke that he's like the Kaiser Thrall from Young Justice. And then what was the kid's name that was the Kaiser Thrall on Young Justice? You remember?
Oh no, I don't remember already. No, I forgot already. It is a very almost like generic sounding name.
Right. But I mean, because in episode 3, he even does a thing that's like the Kaiser Thrall.
Yes, he kind of holds them all down with red lights, which is exactly what the mind controlled Kaiser Thrall did.
Right. So I mean, yeah, there's this dysfunctional group in episode 1. What's that?
Danny Chase.
Okay, so not Christopher. Okay, thank you for looking that up. In episode 1 of season 3, Meet the Family, the Umbrella Academy goes to their mansion and they have a face-off with the Sparrow Academy, and everyone's using their powers. Jamie spits some of that toxin on Diego, and he has this little, trippy moment where he imagines the teams just having a dance-off. And I think that's sort of the most memed or like GIF-made scene of the season so far,
Yeah, no, like I said, they seem to do these coordinated dance sequences in each season. I think this is the big one here. It's good to get it out in the first episode there to kind of draw people in, and then kind of just get them hooked and then keep going.
Yeah, because it was extensive too. It was like pretty much the whole song.
Yeah, it was a good 3-4 minute sequence.
Yeah. I just remember like Luther going like this, and it's like, oh my god, it's so ridiculous. She shoots the toxin on 5, and 5 has this really great moment where he sees the mannequin that he was obsessed with, that he spent time with in the future, and then the mannequin actually becomes a woman, and I was actually really touched by that scene.
Yeah, I think that was well done, and I did think they went a little too far with it, or did it a little too much in the first season. But this was a much more condensed kind of version of it, and I think it's better when it's done like that, because there was too much of that in season 1, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the points about this show, right? Is that it's almost like they take all the written components of the comic and they translate it into this, because there is this thing where he is obsessed with a mannequin in the comic.
Yes.
And they do go to Vietnam. Well, actually, a few of the brothers go to Vietnam in the comic as well. Like,
Luther, Diego, and Klaus all go instead of just Klaus.
Instead of just Klaus, right? So like they
that's in volume 2, and that took place in season 1 in the show.
Right. So they kind of do like check off the box of everything that happens in the comic. It's just in a lot of ways, it's a much more dramatic retelling of it, and sometimes it can be silly, but they're still doing it in some form.
Yeah.
I mean, they even had Pogo, right?
Pogo,
yeah. He's even in the first season too. But and I know I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here, but one thing I noticed that was different in the comic is that Pogo's not the only like ape running around.
Yes, in the comics, Professor Hargreaves is like they kind of, the book opens with all his accomplishments.
Yeah.
And why he's kind of looking for these children, I suppose. And then one of them was that he won a Nobel Prize for like advancing, like whatever he did with the chimpanzees, like
simian something.
Simian brains, neurological research or something.
Yeah, and in season 2, just as a refresher, since you haven't seen it in a while, they have this opening sequence where they send Pogo up into space in a rocket ship.
Yes,
and I'm pretty sure they play Major Tom, like not the David Bowie song, but the 80s one that is like the callback to it. And that sequence is so fucking great too. And that was another character that we forgot to mention. The Umbrella Academy has this android mother, and she's in every season too. And we see a human, like her human model in season 2, like who she's inspired by.
Yes,
and she helped Hargreaves with Pogo in the second season.
Yes,
yeah. But just to kind of bring it back, so Hargreaves is still with the Sparrow Academy in this current timeline, and the android is with them too. It's pretty much the same setup, except that all the kids are different now.
Yeah.
So they have their battle. The Umbrella Academy leaves, and they go to the Hotel Obsidian.
Yes.
Now that's different from the comics too.
Yes. So in the comics, the third volume is called the Hotel Oblivion, and it's essentially a prison in another dimension for the villains of the Umbrella Academy, which they haven't really done the villains very closely in here. I mean, outside of the Master Hazel and Cha Cha, you do see the leader of the commission with the fish head, but they haven't really done the more traditional looking villains in the show, like the conductor from season one, which is like a kind of a guy, and he was in the comic, he was this guy with a mask, and then he does die, but then there's like Dr. Terminal, and who else is there?
They have like a giant Abraham Lincoln statue.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No. There's a battle against an Abraham Lincoln statue. There's a battle that they fight the Eiffel Tower, like a
right.
tower. It's really weird stuff, and the show hasn't done that exactly with the villains. They tend to humanize them a lot more, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's clear distinctions from the show and the comic, and with the Hotel Obsidian, that is once again a big change. In episode 2, which we're going to get to in a second, Hargreaves does say Oblivion. He kind of whispers that, and so I wonder if that's like alluding to the hotel might actually be the Hotel Oblivion.
Yeah, I mean, you can also kind of tell there's some weird stuff going on in this place. There's a lot of weirdly dressed characters around, and just the fact that the Umbrella Academy is just staying there for they paid for what was it, a month or something? With what was it, a watch? I don't remember what it was in the first episode.
It was a watch. Yeah, Luther had this special
weird stuff. Like nobody's bothered by Diego walking around with knives or anything like that, or stashing Molotov cocktails around. It's something is just strange about this place in general.
Yeah. Even its design is very strange too. Yeah. And Diego walking around with his knives, he gets a surprise in the Hotel Obsidian. He runs into Lila, and to him, he's only seen Lila a couple of days ago, but it's been years. And it turns out that when they had sex, she got pregnant, and they have a son named fuck. I wish I could remember his name. Stan, like Stan Lee. There you go. So
that was surprising, especially Lila is an original creation here for the show. I did like Lila last season. It turns out she was also one of the 43 children that were born on October 1st in 1989.
Yes.
And although I don't remember why she's around, she was there longer than them. That didn't make sense. Was she stole the briefcase and she was traveling around, or? They hadn't explained that, I don't think.
It's kind of confusing to figure out her motivation in season 3 so far, because with
I'm just trying to place why she's 10 years older, or she's been how their son is 10 years old now, basically, because they all traveled together, I thought, at the end, but why wasn't she with them? I don't remember that in the season 2.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that in the end of season 2, if I can recall, she like gets her own briefcase and like leaves them.
Okay.
Yeah. But then, and there's also fallout from season 2. We see, I believe, even by the first episode of this season, there's this older man, and he is actually this kid that Vanya interacted with in the 60s when they were trapped back there. His name's Lester on the show. But his name was Harlan in season 2. He was this little boy named Harlan. And he kind of seemed like he had autism. I don't know what he had, though, but that was sort of the way I felt like they were portraying him as a kid. And his mom ended up having this relationship with Vanya at the time. And Vanya fell deeply in love with her. And at one point, he was drowning in a little lake, and she like used her power to make the water fly away, and then her power kind of went into him. And it looks like as an older man, he's going to be playing a big part in this season. And also, once we get to episode 2 of this season, which is called The World's Biggest Ball of Twine, we see that that Vanya has now become Victor. And that kind of coincides with Ellen Page becoming Elliot Page.
Yes, so much like I feel that Vanya's storyline was kind of coincided with at the time Ellen Page's outing herself as a lesbian. The show kind of changes with her with him. Sorry. And that's an interesting way to incorporate it into the storyline. It's fine. I kind of really appreciated how everyone just was like, oh, okay, sure,
right. That was the best part. Pretty much, you see every sibling's reaction to Vanya becoming Victor, and everyone is cool about it. No one asks any kind of stupid questions. No one like says, "Why would you do that?" It's just everyone's like, "Oh, okay. Let's look. Can we talk about other things? Can we move on?" I thought that was great. Yeah. And, and one of the points I wanted to make too was that a major part of this show is changing things in the past and like kind of changing the trajectory of things or changing the way that things happen. And I feel like the show is like the ultimate meta example of that, because they change things from the comic, and because of that, it like births new things on the show. Like all of a sudden you have what the fuck? We're just Lila, this new character, and then it turns out, well, she was another one of these kids. Then she had a kid with Diego, so now you have like this new son in the show, and that's not in the comic at all. So there's like all these new things being born out of it. And like with Vanya, I still need to finish volume 2, and I need to finish volume 3. But like, I don't really remember Vanya having that much of a prominent role, but she's got a very prominent role in the show.
Yes, she doesn't. Her season 2 storyline was completely original. I don't think she was even really in volume 2 of the comic that much, because she was still kind of recovering. And then,
she was recovering, like Allison couldn't talk in the comic in the comic Dallas, the second one. And so she's like walking around with a notepad, like to write things. And Vanya is kind of like imprisoned and recovering. And so there's this one part where like Allison like makes her see like the damage that she caused, but that's pretty much all I've seen of her in volume 2.
Yeah, and I think she comes back and has a more prominent role in volume 3, but I have to get back and read it again. So hopefully I'll have that done by the time we watch the next set of episodes.
Yeah, ditto. Me too. But yeah, it's so cool how like it just starts to go off in all these different directions. Like obviously in the second volume of the comic, they go back to the time of the Kennedy assassination, and there's some time hopping around. But in this show, they did this thing where like they all landed at different points in time, and they had their own little story arcs, and each arc was great. Like Klaus started his own cult, and Diego fell in love with Lila, and he was in a mental institution. He's trying to stop the Kennedy assassination. And so now it's all kind of spilling over into this season. And we find out in World's Biggest Ball of Twine that there is this like force that they have kind of created. They call it the grandfather paradox. And at the very end of season 3, episode 1, we see that this force is like really powerful and can just wipe people out. It wipes out Marcus from the Sparrow Academy.
Yes.
Were you expecting that when that happened?
No. I didn't think that we would lose a member of the Sparrow Academy that quickly. And so far it's also taken the hotel guy's dog, and it's something the lobsters in the tank and all those cows in that field by the ball of twine. So it's some kind of weird pulse that's happening, and it's has some far-reaching effects, and it's starting to take people as well, and in addition to Marcus.
Yeah, and I know that in the 4th episode they say the name of like what the thing is, but it's essentially like they've kind of broken time, and it's this pulse. And I think that that's going to ultimately be the big bad they have to face. Every time there's this, each season there is like an apocalyptic threat. And so that's the apocalyptic threat for this season.
Seems like it,
yeah. So let's see what I have written for episode 2. So Klaus and Twine go on a road trip, and they end up going to this Amish village, because they're essentially trying to track down their mothers, and then they want to see if their doppelgangers exist. But then we find out their doppelgangers don't exist because each of their mothers died before the day they were supposed to get pregnant.
Yeah, it seems like they all died on the day they were supposed to be born. Beforehand, and these pregnancies were unnatural in the comics. I don't know if they quite explained it is the same way, but they were sudden and all happened at the exact same time. So
yeah, in the comics, it's weird because it's almost like they're suggesting that it had something to do with this like wrestling match between this incredible wrestler and like a squid monster.
Yes, and that's the kind of weird. That's the kind of weird that the comic is. That
right.
The show doesn't touch as much.
Right. And so the show doesn't suggest what caused the pregnancies yet. However, when they show the pregnancies, it's like almost like a horror movie because you always have like some woman and there's like a little bit of a romantic scene with someone. And maybe she kisses someone and then like 2 minutes later, she's like going into labor. And it's like a horror movie. It's real scary.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see. In that scene, though, we go to this Amish community, and there's some great bonding between Five and Klaus, and we find out that Klaus's mother would have been an Amish woman, but then she died before she gave birth, and then we have this fight between Alfonso and Jamie, and then Diego and Stan. What do you think of that fight?
It's a pretty on par fight with the show. They kind of have a almost not meaningless fight, but it's just in a weird location. It's just in like a CVS or something. It exactly looked like a Walgreens, to be honest.
Right. They're gonna strangle someone with a long receipt or something,
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the fight, and Diego and Stan are able to get away from those two. But then Luther gets kidnapped by the second episode by the Sparrows, and he's held prisoner, but he gets to have this bonding time with Sloane. And then eventually the two of them hook up. And I actually really liked that sequence too, because she kind of used her telekinesis to like bring him up to her window, and then they kiss. It was almost like West Side Story, where he's like outside in the alleyway, but she uses telekinesis to bring her to him.
Yeah.
And then in the next episode, season 3.
Well, before we move off of that here, and that scene also to do, we kind of get more of a view on, what's going on in the Sparrow Academy there behind the scenes there. That how they're always being watched and they're being controlled, and it's kind of curious as to who or what is doing that, because it's not Reginald, because it seems like he's being pacified by pills and whatnot, based on the scene with Klaus. So there's also that kind of mystery bubbling up as well.
Yeah. I like that you haven't seen more than I have of season 3, so you don't know what's going to happen.
I don't yet, no.
Yeah.
And again, like this, there is a comic, called Hotel Oblivion, and it seems to be fairly different from this so far. And the Sparrows are just one page in that comic at the very end. So a lot of this, much like season 2, is likely very new territory.
Yeah. And Luther, he kind of puts it together. Before he leaves, he thinks, oh, you're trying to honeypot me. Like, you're trying to figure out what's going on. Like, essentially, the Sparrows and the Umbrella Academy have each other at like a stalemate, where the Sparrows believe that the Umbrella Academy has Marcus, and then the Umbrella Academy thinks that the Sparrows have the briefcase they can use to get back to their timeline. And Lila, the cool thing about her is that she's able to mirror the powers of any person that has powers, and so she like uses that Raven power to get the briefcase for herself.
Are her powers more like Mimic from like X-Men? It's like she has to be nearby to use the power, I think.
Yeah, it kind of that's what it seems like. It's not like Rogue. Like, I don't think she has to touch them or anything. Yeah. But I mean, that was actually a huge reveal in the end of season 2, when all of a sudden she did Vanya's power. So yeah, that's a great point that you bring up about like who's actually watching the Sparrows, because it's not Hargreaves. He's been sort of neutered, And it's funny because rereading the comic, I forgot that he was an alien. And that's like this cool one panel thing in the comic where they say all the things that he is, and then they're like, he's an alien.
And I believe they do reveal that in season 2.
They do. The dad, Hargreaves, was involved in this sort of like little syndicate that was a part of the Kennedy assassination. And at the very end, they're kind of like taking him for granted. They say, "Oh, you're going to do what we want you to do." And he goes and he like takes off his mask, but you only see the back of his head. And you just hear them being like attacked by him.
That's kind of how the comic does it as well, is that they don't directly show his face. They just show the mask, the Stephen Hargreaves mask kind of sitting there.
Right, exactly. So, whatever is keeping him in place, whatever those pills are, there's obviously some kind of powerful force, because he's a very intellectually dangerous person, but it seems like he's a physically dangerous person too. So it has to be a powerful threat. So then at the end of that episode, we transition over to episode 3, Pocket Full of Lightning. There's this great little sequence where Luther's all excited because he had sex for the first time. He's like running around town, like all smiling and happy. At one point, he like goes up to like a bum, and the bum vomits right in front of him, and he's still happy. I love that.
Yeah, he's like spinning on like telephone pole or lamppost and all that, just like a very Singing in the Rain kind of thing.
Yeah. And he goes and he like buys condoms, and he's like, "I need condoms because I have sex now." Yeah. I just love that shit. But then the guy that he buys condoms from gets destroyed by the Force.
Yes, and then he just kind of like walks away, just okay.
Yeah, I think he says "oh shit," which is kind of like almost like a "oh boy" for him.
Yes, yeah.
He says "oh shit" a lot, like "oh shit." So anyway, in this one, the very like cold open, which is interesting because that's one of the things I love about the show too, is that usually you'll have this like very unique opening scene that has almost like nothing to do with the rest of the plot. And in this case, they show what a grandfather paradox is, and it's almost like one of those like. So
that's the beginning. That's the beginning of episode 4.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so anyway, then let's Oh, this one opens with. Does it open with Harlan like showing like what happened to Sissy and?
I don't think. No, I don't think the only indication we've gotten that is Harlan is Victor saying Harlan at the very end of the scene where the Sparrow Academy and the Umbrella Academy meet in the hotel lobby, and then it looks like Jamie and Alfonso die because he uses Victor's power that he acquired.
Yeah.
So that's the only indication that we have that that's Harlan so far.
Okay. I got to be careful because I've essentially watched 23 episodes of this show like in the past like week or two, so it blurs together.
How far did you? How much further did you get than I did so far in 4 and 3?
I'm just in episode 4.
Okay.
Right. So like, because there's 10 in one, 10 in the second, and then I watched 3 of this. So yeah, okay. It's starting to blur together. But in this 3rd episode, let's see. Yeah, actually, we kind of talked about a lot of this 3rd episode.
We kind of covered everything, I think.
All right, never mind. Yeah. So do you have anything else like you want to bring up about this show in general or this season?
Yeah, I guess just I'm interested so far. There are some mysteries that I don't know yet. I like that it's kind of unknown territory from the comics. I've grown to appreciate the changes in this show, unlike some other shows here and there that just kind of change things. But for whatever reason, it seems to be working for them, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah. I think that if you look at everything that we cover the Disney Plus Marvel shows, we've covered Peacemaker on HBO Max, and then we've covered Jupiter's Legacy. Am I missing anything from what we've covered as far as shows?
Yeah, this Star Wars, Marvel, HBO Max, and Netflix. Really, that's all we've done so far.
Right, and I feel like each one of those is its own thing, right? Like the Netflix shows are their own thing. I feel like tonally and like the way that they curse and the violence and stuff in this show kind of matches up with Jupiter's Ascending. It's not on the same level as Peacemaker. And then the Marvel shows are their own thing, right? Where there's not really any cursing. There's not really a lot of blood. There's clearly a type that I prefer. I prefer these shows where they're kind of violent and over the top and silly and weird. Like I think that if we were to just randomly rank the shows that we've covered, like I would like put Peacemaker maybe right at the top, this show after that, then the MCU shows, and then Jupiter's Ascending at the very bottom.
Oh, if we forgot Amazon and The Boys.
Oh my God! I would put the Boys.
Yeah. So for me, Peacemaker, and The Boys are at the top basically so far. The TV shows that we've covered, and I would throw Doom Patrol up there too.
Oh my God, we forgot that too.
Young Justice, Doom Patrol. Yeah. So honestly, if I had to rank the services here, I would say that HBO Max is kind of at the top here, with Amazon, closely following with. Not that we didn't review Invincible, but we did both watch it, and The Boys is right after, and then somewhere I guess Marvel's third, and I guess Netflix is dead last here for the most part.
Yeah,
I mean I do like this show, but I don't think it's quite up to the standards of the other stuff. I mean, maybe you could argue with some of the Marvel stuff, but yeah.
Okay, well put. Yeah, I totally forgot about Doom Patrol and then The Boys, of course. Holy shit! And then you mentioned Young Justice in there too. Like, there's something about these shows where if they can be kind of bizarre and violent and absurd, that seems to be working for these comic book shows.
Yeah, it's really like more a little bit edgier, pushing the boundary, I suppose. It's just surprising you. A lot of the Marvel shows, they do have, surprises and shocks and twists, but they all feel a lot safer.
Exactly. Yeah. So I actually would love, maybe when we're done with this, when we do our third episode of this, maybe if we could actually rank all of the shows that we've reviewed so far, I'd actually really like to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
And just see where Umbrella Academy ranks, because I certainly would not put this at the bottom. No. I would put it ahead of a lot of the Marvel shows, actually. But then when you throw in like Doom Patrol and The Boys, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I like those better.
I'm pretty sure we'll both agree that Jupiter's Legacy is at the bottom.
Yes. That fucking guy. What's that fucking guy from the Transformers movies?
Josh Duhamel.
And his fucking wig, man. Holy shit. Yeah, I'm glad we don't have to watch that shit anymore. Yeah. That was maybe the hardest thing to review for this channel, I think.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw they have Super Crooks on Netflix now too.
Oh yeah, that's supposed to be like an anime, right?
It is. It looks very anime, yes. But I'm like, oh, do I want to get back involved with that again?
I mean, it depends. I think they're actually supposed to make Magic Order into a TV show too, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, a TV show, or I mean, I guess that work is a TV show. That's such a weird book to me. There's a weird turn in that, I guess. That's Miller too, right? Or
all Miller. It's all Miller.
Yeah, it feels very Miller. Man, I'd be curious to see that, but I had mixed reactions to the Magic Order.
Fuck, I gotta read that, man. Just to give an idea, like over here, I don't know if people can see all this shit, but this is all the books I have to read. These are like literal books, like novels, right? And then back here are all my comics and your comics that I have to read too.
Ooh, yeah, I see. I saw X of Swords there. It's kind of hard to read, but I saw it. I just bought a Fire tablet because I'm so angry at comicsology, and stupid me has to buy into their system rather than fight against it. You can't buy things in app on either iOS or Android anymore, but
that's right.
If you have an Amazon device, you can. So it was so inconvenient to me to buy comic books that I bought a Amazon device just to simplify buying comics.
So fucking annoying.
Really toyed with just going back to the traditional comic shop, buying issues, going there every week. But ultimately, I don't have the space. I don't have the space for comic books.
Yeah, come on, you need it for Transformers.
And then also looking through my extensive 15 plus years of comicsology buying, I have thousands of books. I can't just abandon that.
No, yeah. I know.
The point was I just downloaded about 100 comic books of my backlog that I want to read.
Oh my god!
And most of those are X-Men.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's what I want to get into for your books is the X-Men stuff. Yeah, man.
Oh, I bought Axe Judgment today too, also, so you can read that.
Fuck, I wanted to buy that too. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, so it looks like we should sign out of here and go read some fucking comics. But it has been a pleasure talking to you about Umbrella Academy, and I'm very, very happy that you recommended we watch this show.
I'm so happy that you breezed through this show in 3 weeks? That's insane.
Yeah, I'm kind of a weirdo. Maybe I neglected my kids a little bit. I'm like, I gotta see what Klaus is doing. Go play it yourself. But anyway, but Brian and I will be here next Wednesday night where we're going to talk about episodes 4, 5, and 6 of season 3. So we will see you cats next Wednesday at 9:15.